The desert night had swallowed Theresa Kennedy whole, and she was certain these trackless miles of Colorado wilderness would become her grave. She had been traveling west with a wagon train bound for California, families seeking new opportunities in the promised land beyond the mountains. Theresa, 22 years old and recently orphaned after fever took both her parents back in Missouri, had sold everything to join the expedition. She had nothing left in the world except a trunk of belongings and the fierce determination to start fresh somewhere the past could not follow. But 3 days ago their guide had led them astray. Water grew scarce. Tempers flared. When a group split off to find their own path, Theresa had gone with them, trusting a loud-mouthed merchant who claimed he knew these lands. He did not. Yesterday morning, she had wandered from their makeshift camp to relieve herself privately behind a cluster of rocks. When she returned, the wagons were gone. She had called and called until her throat was raw, but the desert wind carried her voice away like smoke. Now, stumbling over rocks she could not see, her water long gone, her lips cracked and bleeding, Theresa wondered if dying alone might be a mercy compared to the terror of not knowing what lurked in the darkness around her. She had heard the stories about mountain lions, about bears, about worse things that walked on 2 legs and showed no mercy to women traveling alone. Her dress was torn from catching on scrub brush. Her hands were scraped and bleeding from falls she could not prevent. Every direction looked the same in the moonless night, and she had long since lost any sense of which way might lead to civilization. Her foot caught on something and she pitched forward, landing hard on the rocky ground. Pain shot through her palms and knees. She lay there for a moment, too exhausted to rise, too frightened to stay still. Tears came then, hot and bitter, and she hated herself for the weakness even as she could not stop them. She had wanted to be brave. She had wanted to prove she could make her own way in the world. Instead, she would die out here and no one would ever know what became of her. That was when she saw it. A light, distant but unmistakable, bobbing through the darkness like a star come down to earth. Theresa scrambled to her feet, ignoring the screaming protest of her battered body. She opened her mouth to call out, but her throat was too dry to produce more than a croak. She staggered toward the light, afraid it was a mirage, afraid it would vanish if she blinked. The ground was uneven, treacherous, but she kept moving, kept her eyes fixed on that blessed glow. The light grew closer, and she could make out the shape of a lantern, and behind it, the silhouette of a man on horseback. She tried to call again and managed a thin, desperate sound that was barely human. The rider stopped. The lantern lifted higher, and a voice called out, rough but not unkind. "Who is there? Show yourself." Theresa tried to answer, tried to walk faster, but her legs buckled. She went down hard, tasting dirt and copper blood from her split lip. The world tilted sickeningly. She heard hoofbeats approaching, quick and purposeful, and then the lantern was right there, warm light washing over her like salvation itself. "Christ Almighty," the man said, dismounting in one fluid motion. "Miss, can you hear me?" She managed to nod, managed to look up at him. He was tall, lean, weathered by sun and wind in the way of men who lived their lives outdoors. His face was shadowed beneath the brim of his hat, but his eyes caught the lantern light, and they were filled with concern rather than threat. He wore the clothes of a working man, dusty denim and worn leather, and he moved with the easy competence of someone who knew exactly what to do in a crisis. "Water," Theresa managed to whisper. He was already reaching for the canteen at his belt. He knelt beside her, sliding one arm behind her shoulders to support her, and held the canteen to her lips. "Slow," he warned. "Just small sips, or you will make yourself sick." The water was the most beautiful thing she had ever tasted. She wanted to gulp it down to drain the entire canteen, but his hand was firm, controlling the flow. After a few precious swallows, he pulled it away. "More," she pleaded. "In a minute. Let that settle first." He studied her face in the lantern light, his expression grave. "What in God's name are you doing out here alone?" "Lost," she said, her voice stronger now with moisture coating her throat. "My wagon train, they left me, I could not find them." His jaw tightened. "They left you, deliberately?" "I do not know. I went to attend to private matters, and when I returned they were gone. I have been walking for I am not sure how long. 2 days, maybe. I lost track." He swore under his breath, words she pretended not to hear. "Can you stand?" "I think so." He helped her to her feet, his grip strong and steady. She swayed against him, and he held her upright without comment. She was suddenly, acutely aware of how she must look, how she must smell, covered in dirt and sweat and desperation. Shame heated her face. "I apologize," she said. "I must seem a fright." "You seem like someone who has been through hell and survived it," he said. "That is nothing to apologize for. Can you ride?" Yes, I believe so." "Good. My ranch is about 5 miles north of here. You need food, water, and rest in that order. We can sort out the rest come morning." He helped her onto his horse, then swung up behind her, one arm securing her against his chest while the other held the reins. The lantern hung from his saddle horn, swaying gently as they began to move. Theresa tried to hold herself upright, tried not to lean too heavily against him, but exhaustion was a weight she could not fight. Her head drooped against his shoulder. "Go ahead and rest," he said, his voice a low rumble she could feel through his chest. "I've got you. You are safe now. Safe." The word was a benediction. Theresa let her eyes close, let herself relax into the solid warmth of him, and for the first time in 2 days, she felt like she might actually survive this. She drifted in and out of awareness during the ride. Sometimes she would startle awake, confused and frightened until she remembered where she was. Each time, the man would speak softly, reassuring her, and she would settle again. Once, he let her have more water. Once, he pointed out a coyote watching them from a distance, its eyes reflecting the lantern light like coins. Finally, lights appeared ahead, the warm glow of windows in the darkness. "Almost there," he said. The ranch house was modest but well-maintained, a sturdy structure of wood and stone that spoke of a man who took pride in his property. A barn stood nearby, and she could see the shapes of outbuildings in the darkness.